Hey there, you, me, and DC fans, and welcome if you're new. I am the stepson of Krypton, and today we are starting a new Batman series, Batman, new by the All In DC series and by writer Matt Fraction. Now, that name may sound familiar to some of you. Matt has done a lot of work in like Uncanny X Men, the Invincible Iron Man, and even some Hawkeye issues. So he's done a lot of Marvel work. So we're going to get into this issue. I don't know if it's going to become a series or not because we're already doing so many in the comic book world, as well as like absolute Batman and everything going on in that world. But since everybody seems to love Batman, we'll see. But guys, I don't want to waste a whole lot of time and drag into this intro. So let's just get on into the issue and see what this is all about. So the issue opens up and we see an older style Gotham. I say older because we see, the older style looking buildings where it looks like more of just a normal city, but we also see that they're rocking the old Crown Vic police cars. And we see a couple of beat cops discussing the crazy heat that's been happening. And we find out one of the officers is a person we know well, Commissioner Gordon, or should I say Officer Gordon. Not sure what caused the demotion, but let's see if we don't find out. We then flip over to see this large Grinch looking monster jumping at us, and it attacks a meat truck, obviously hungry. And as the rookie officer's panicking, Gordon just says, let's just call it in. Like it was just another day in Gotham City. Suddenly, we're at the Arkham Towers and we see the man himself, Batman, looking kind of like a mix of an older and newer Batman. I say the suit seems more like it's like a lighter gray with that dark blue cape and cowl and symbol, kind of like on the old TV show. But the symbol and parts of the suit kind of look more current time. And the Batman, he just seems like he's getting tired of some things. And we learn that the Grinch creature is actually none other than Waylon Jones, Killer Croc. And I think it's kind of interesting that in the Absolute universe, if you're following a Mantis along in his Absolute Batman series, he's having run in right now, like they're at Arc M and he's met up with Croc, good old Waylon. But however, in this universe, the doctor's telling Batman that Croc is changing. However, the cynical side of Batman, he believes that people can't change. Even though Croc is shedding his skin and we see remnants of that, he may be shedding even more. The morphotoxins that Waylon has been exposed to have caused his regression, not only in his rage and overall anger, but in his overall behavioral patterns, becoming almost childlike in his mind. Batman tells Dr. Zeller to stall the police while he goes and finds Waylon because they will shoot first and he wants to bring back her patient. So the next two pages, it's kind of that's the open, you have the comic book open. We get these two pages. We see a beautiful Gotham City. We see a little bit more of an advanced looking city. It's got like a very downtown New York-ish looking vibe to it. And we're getting all of these ads and like clips of like shows and commercials and things of that nature. Like we don't get enough ads, especially here on YouTube. But I think what's interesting is we see Batman on the second page, and he's soaring through the air. And one of the parts of the comic that I really like is we get these little information panels, kind of like you'd see in a video game. This one we see Batwing, low altitude, low opening flight suit, titano graphene weave, glide ratio 5 to 1. I think that's awesome. Hopefully, we're going to keep kind of getting these, but I like having those little information panels popping up about his tech. Back at police headquarters, we see whom we kind of have to assume is the police commissioner because he's talking to the cops, and several of the tactical urban combat officers are behind him, who are there to deal with augmented criminal activities, which got to assume is these more like powered individuals. And we get a pretty big shock for this issue as we find out that it's Commissioner Savage. Now, to be fair, kind of when you see him at the top of the page, as soon as you turn onto this page, you kind of like, huh, that kind of looks like Vandal Savage, but turns out it is none other than Vandal Savage. Now, for those of you who aren't really familiar with his backstory, Vandar, or Vandal Savage, he was born about 47,000 BC. and he was granted his immortality when this meteor had crashed down and the exposure to it gave him infinite life. Now, we have seen versions of him in not only the Arrowverse, but even in Smallville when we saw Curtis Knox, aka CK, which was
I have been speared by Mayan warriors.
funny they call him CK because it was Dean Cain who played Superman in the Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. We then flash over. We're heading southbound on West Coventry here, and we see the Batmobile, and I am loving the slight futuristic slash part kind of muscle car, kind of like from Robert Pattinson's The Batman look to the Batmobile. And oddly enough, Alfred's in it. He's his passenger, and they're both off to find Croc or Wayland. So then we quickly go over to Robinson Park, and we're following a couple of ladies having a nice run in the park, which quickly is interrupted by a crazy gang of scissor people that seem to have less than honorable intentions in mind. Although I will say their plans are kind of short lived as Batman just kind of plows right through the group of them. Uh, they're taken care of pretty quickly. Batman kind of gets out there and yeah, he kicks their ass. We learned that the name of this group is the Creeps, which is pretty fitting for them when you see them all with their scissors and just kind of being creepy. So it works. And Batman tells the ladies that the Robinson Park has kind of become their hunting ground. So it might be best that the ladies find a new place to jog. However, as he's kind of like looking them over for injury, they almost seem as afraid of him as they do the Creeps. That quickly changes though, as Batman goes to leave and the ladies seem kind of shocked and scared. They don't want to be left alone. Batman, however, has no intentions of doing so. We go to Vocom's to the car and he instructs it to protect them. And again, we get another little information icon telling us about the car and that it's going into autonomous mode. And what I kinda like about this is it gives me the feelings of, like, the Tim Burton Batman when he's giving voice commands to the Batmobile, and he's like, "Shields," and he's like, "Follow," "Stop." So, we finally arrive at the Natural History Museum, and we can tell that Croc has been here via our spectro lenses that show us the trail of blood that he has left through the full spectrum scanning, which leads Alfred to comment, how Batman is quite the detective. And oh boy, don't you just gotta love that Pennyworth wit. So as Batman's approaching the exhibit area where he believes Croc to be, we see a security guard and he's got two civilians there with him, and he's trying to get help as Croc is there, but he's Croc's just kind of sitting on the floor. Batman quickly silences the guard, telling him like the gun is making the child scared, which will only anger Croc. Batman gets the people and the security guard to safety, and now he tells the guard he's going back in. He's going to strike some terror into Croc's heart. With the help of his electro charged bat gauntlets, we get another one of our little informational icons. So Batman surprises Croc, and just as it seems like they're about to have this epic showdown, Croc calls Batman bad and tells him to go, sounding kind of like a child, which is kind of what Dr. Zeller was alluding to earlier on in the issue. Even Alfred chimes in that Croc may actually be changing. This may be some cycle in his life that has him regress back to a childlike state and a scared child alone. And if anybody kind of knows what that feels like, it's Bruce. We see Batman kind of do the most un-Batman like thing we've seen in a long time. He takes down his cowl, exposing his identity, and he's sitting on the floor talking to Croc like old pals, even calling him buddy. Now, again, kind of reminds me if we're in current time, we go back to the absolute universe. Croc and or Waylon and Bruce were friends growing up. So it's kind of nice to see that back here. It looks like they knew each other, and you could tell Batman speaking to the doctor earlier that they'd known each other for a while. They're sitting up here in the exhibit. They're looking at this T Rex, and Croc kind of compares himself to that T Rex, saying, you know, like not in the way of being the king, but in the way of he's scary and he's bad. And he seems so confused. He's struggling to understand his bad brain. Just then, Dr. Zeller and her team show up. Croc agrees to go with them. Maybe she can help, his bad head. But he asked Batman, who's going to help him? Who will help Batman? And of course, Batman being him says, "I don't need any help." And yeah, I thought it was kind of funny that Croc says, "If you say so." So even kind of with the mind of a child, he sees Batman needs help. So boom, we see the Batmobile taking off. All has been corrected. But what I think is weird is we obviously see the mansion him pulling up to, but it's Pennyworth Manor. I thought it's kind of interesting. And he gets a call, and we see him. He's talking. It's Robin on the phone. He's needing reinforcements, but it kind of you're getting the impression that they don't seem to have many friends in law enforcement these days. We then cut to Robin standing over a thug, but he's got his hands up, and, if you look towards the back half, we see a couple other thugs have their guns drawn on him, so I don't know that the cops are necessarily gonna get there in time. And that does it for us on this first issue of the Batman series. I don't know, I'm loving it so far just because I love how they kinda mixed in some of the futuristic with some of the old kinda classic. I love the little information panels we're getting with the little icons there, kinda giving us the information on his tech. I love the story so far. It seems like, again, he's wanting to do good, he's wanting to try to help even Croc. He didn't wanna get him killed, that's why he wanted her, Dr. Zeller, to stall the police. I'm loving this series. I think it's a kind of a good contrast to what's going on in the Absolute universe. Let me know down in the comments, how do you feel about this issue thus far of Batman? Do you want us to continue doing these? Maybe bring Mantis into it. Maybe Mantis will take care of it himself since he's already doing the Absolute Batman. Um, and then if you do like the Absolute Batman better, kind of why? Why do you think the Absolute Batman's better? What do you enjoy about it more? And if you have made it with me this far, go ahead and consider giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the videos we are doing, especially if you have the bell notifications clicked. But everything we're doing in the Absolute Universe, maybe we'll make this a reoccurring issue that we go over, as well as everything we've got going on in the TV and movies of the DC. And guys, to keep this as short as is humanly possible, that is going to wrap it for me on this episode of You, Me, and DC. Until next time, guys, I'll see you then.